Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 3 of our reading of Farmer Giles of Ham. Be reading the second story. And, first of all, of course, we go over the copyright information. And I think I missed the page. There it is. Right here it does say that the book is Farmer Giles of Ham, is copyright 1949, all rights reserved. So, yeah. We will be picking up where we left off, and now there isn't a giant, there is a dragon. A dragon is terrorizing the countryside by the name of Chrysophylax Diver, I believe. And they're really pressuring Farmer Giles to face the dragon, and it turns out that the sword that the king sent him is actually the legendary Tailbiter. So it's a magic sword. Anyways, we are going to pick this up where we left off. Okay, I think we're down here. And he's about to make an excuse or try to get out. What? He said, me go dragon hunting? In my old leggings and waistcoat? Dragon fights need armor, I would imagine. I don't know. I'm going to just guess here. Some kind of armor. Okay, I guess I was right. Let's try and get this. Okay. Armor. From all I've heard tell, there isn't any armor in this house, and that's a fact, he said. That was a bit awkward. They all allowed, but they set for the blacksmith. The blacksmith shook his head. He was a slow, gloomy man, vulgarly known as Sunny Sam, though his proper name was Fabricius. Ouch. Let's see. I'm going to try and puzzle out this word here. Suntactor. He never whistled at his work, unless some disaster, such as frost in May, had duly occurred after he had foretold it, since he was daily foretelling disasters of every kind. Few happened that he had not foretold, and he was able to take a credit of them. It was his chief pleasure, so naturally he was reluctant to do anything to avert them. He shook his head again. I can't make armor out of knot, he said, and it's not my line. You'd best get the carpenter to get you a wooden shield. Not that it will help you much. He's a hot dragon. Their faces fell, but the miller was not so easily to be turned from his plan of sending Giles to the dragon. If he would go, or of blowing the bubble of his local reputation. If he refused, in the end, what about ring mail, he said. That would be a help, and it need not be very fine. It would be for business and not for showing off at court. What about your old leather jerkin, friend Gideus? And there's a great pile of links and rings in the smithy. I don't suppose Master Fabricus himself knows what may be lying there. You don't know what you're talking about, said the smith, growing cheerful. If it's real ring mail, you mean, then you can't have it. It needs the skill of the dwarves, and every little ring fitting into 4 others and all. Even if I had the craft, I should be working for weeks, and we shall all be in our graves before that, he said, or leastways in the dragon. They all wrung their hands in dismay, and the blacksmith began to smile, but they were now so alarmed that they were unwilling to give up the miller's plan, and they turned to him for counsel. Well, said he, I've heard tell that there is that in the old days, those that could not buy bright hoop hauberks out of the Southlands would stitch steel rings on a leather shirt and be content with that. Let's see what we can do in that line. So Giles had to bring out his old jerkin, and the smith was hurried back into a smithy. There they rummaged in every corner and turned over the pile of old metal that had not been done for many a year. At the bottom they found, all dull with rust, a whole heap of small rings fallen from some forgotten coat, such as the miller had spoken of. Sam, more unwilling and gloomy as the task seemed more hopeful, was set to work on the spot, gathering and sorting and cleaning the rings, and when as he was pleased to point out, they were clearly insufficient for one so broad of back and breast as Master Gideus. They made him split up old chains and hammer the links into rings as fine as his skill could contrive. They took the smaller rings of steel and stitched them onto the breast of the jerkin, and the larger and clumsier rings were stitched on the back. And then, when still more rings were forthcoming, so hard was poor Sam driven, they took a pair of the farmer's breeches and stitched rings into them, and up on a shelf in a dark nook of the smithy, the miller found an old iron frame of a helmet, and he set the cobbler to work covering it with leather as well as he could. The work took them all the rest of that day, and all the next day, which was the 12th night and the eve of the Epiphany, but festivities were neglected. Farmer Giles celebrated the occasion with more ale than usual, but the dragon mercifully slept. For the moment, he had forgotten all about hunger or swords. Early on the Epiphany, they went up the hill carrying the strange results of their handiwork. Giles was expecting them. He now had no excuses left. And there he is with his ring mail. He had now no excuses left to offer. So he put on the mail jerkin and the breeches. The miller sniggered. Then Giles put on his top boots and an old pair of spurs, and also the leather-covered helmet. But at the last moment, he clapped an old felt hat over the helmet, and over the mail coat he threw his big gray cloak. "What is the purpose of that, master?" they asked. Let's find out. "Well," said Giles, "if it was your notion to go dragon hunting jingling and dingling like Canterbury bells, it ain't mine. I don't seem sense to me to let a dragon know that you're coming along the road sooner than need be, and the helmet's a helmet and a challenge to battle. Let the worm see only my old hat over the hedge, and maybe I'll get nearer before the trouble begins." They had stitched on the rings so that they overlapped each other loose over the one below. The jingle they certainly did. The cloak did something to stop the noise of them, but Giles cut a strange figure in his gear. They did not tell him so. They girded the belt around his waist with difficulty, and they hung the scabbard upon it. but he had to carry the sword, for it would no longer stay sheathed unless held with main strength. The farmer called for Garm. He was a just man to his lights. Dog, he said, you are coming with me. The dog howled. Help, help, he cried. Now stop it, said Giles, or I'll give you worse than any dragon could. You know the smell of the worm. Maybe you'll prove useful for once. Then Farmer Giles called for his gray mare. She gave him a strange look and sniffed at the spurs, but she let him get up. And then off they went. And none of them felt happy. They trotted through the village, and all the folk clapped and cheered, mostly from the windows. The farmer and his mare put as good a face on as they could, but Garm had no sense of shame and slunk along with his tail down. They crossed the bridge over the river at the end of the village. When at last they were well out of sight, they slowed to a walk, yet all too soon they passed out of the lands belonging to Farmer Giles and to other folk of Ham, and came to parts that the dragon had visited. There were broken trees, burned hedges, and blackened grass, and a nasty, uncanny silence. The sun was shining bright, and Farmer Giles began to wish that he had dared shed a garment or two, and he wondered if he had not taken a pen too many. A nice end to Christmas and all, he thought, and I'll be lucky if it don't prove the death of me. The end of me too. Oh, I was right. He mopped his face with a large handkerchief, green, not red, for red rags infuriated dragons, or so he had heard tell. But he did not find the dragon. He rode down many lanes, wide and narrow, and over other farmers' deserted fields, and still he did not find the dragon. Garm was, of course, of no use at all. He kept just behind the mare and refused to use his nose. They came at last to a winding road that had suffered little damage and seemed quiet and peaceful. After following it for half a mile, Giles began to wonder whether he had not done his duty and all that his reputation required. He had made up his mind that he had looked long and far enough, and he was just thinking of turning back, and of his dinner, and of telling his friends that the dragon had seen him coming and simply flown away when he turned a sharp corner. There was the dragon lying half across a broken hedge, with his horrible head in the middle of the road. Help, said Garm, and bolted. The gray mare sat down plump, and Farmer Giles went off backwards into a ditch. When he put his head out, there was the dragon wide awake looking at him. Good morning, said the dragon. You seem surprised. Good morning, said Giles. I am that. Okay. Let's see what we got in the picture here. Okay, yeah, there's the mare bucking him off, and then there's the dragon. Yeah, okay. Let's 110. Okay, here we go. There's the dragon. Okay. Excuse me, said the dragon. He had cocked a very suspicious ear, and he caught the sound of the rings jingling as the farmer fell. Excuse me, asking, but were you looking for me by any chance? No, indeed, said the farmer. Who'd have thought of seeing you here? I was just going for a ride. He scrabbled out of the ditch in a hurry and backed away towards the gray mare. She was now on her feet again and nibbling some grass at the wayside, seeming quite unconcerned. Then we met by good luck, said the dragon. The pleasure is mine. Those are your holiday clothes, I suppose? A new fashion, perhaps? Farmer Giles felt that he had fallen off, and his gray cloak had slipped open. But he brazened it out. He said, brand new, but I must be but I must be after the dog of mine. He's gone after rabbits, I fancy. I fancy not, said Chrysophylax, licking his lips, a sign of amusement. He'll get home a long time before you do, I expect. But pray proceed on your way, master. Let me see. I don't think I know your name. Nor I yours, said Giles, and we'll leave it at that. As you like, said Chrysophylax, licking his lips again, but pretending to close his eyes. He had a wicked heart. All dragons, as dragons all have, but not a very bold one, as is not unusual. He preferred a meal that he did not have to fight for, but appetite had returned after a good sleep, a good long sleep. The parson of Oakley had been stringy, and it was years since he had tasted a large fat man. He had now made up his mind to try this easy meal, and he was only waiting until the old fool was off his guard. But the old fool was not as foolish as he looked, and he kept his eye on the dragon even while he was trying to mount. The mare, however, had other ideas, and she kicked and shied when Giles tried to get up. The dragon became impatient and made ready to spring. "Excuse me," he said. "Haven't you dropped something?" That's a big dragon. Okay, let's see. An ancient trick, but it succeeded, for Giles had indeed dropped something. When he fell, he had dropped Mordax, or vulgarly tailbiter, and there it lay by the wayside. He stooped to pick it up, and the dragon sprang, but not as quick as tailbiter. As soon as it was in the farmer's hand, it leapt forward with a flash straight at the dragon's eye. "Hey," said the dragon, and stepped very short. "What have you got there?" "Only tailbiter. That was given to me by the king," said Giles. "My mistake," said the dragon. "I beg your pardon." He lay and groveled, and Farmer Giles began to feel more comfortable. "I don't think you have treated me fair." "How not?" said Giles. "And anyways, why should I? You have concealed your honorable name, and pretended that our meeting was by chance, yet you are plainly a knight of high lineage. It used, sir, to be the custom of knights to issue a challenge in such cases after proper exchange of titles and credentials." Maybe it used, and maybe it still is," said Giles, beginning to feel pleased with himself. A man who had a large and imperial dragon groveling before him may be excused if he feels somewhat uplifted. But you are making more mistakes than one, old worm. I am no knight. I am a farmer, Giles of Ham. I am, and can't abide trespassers. I've shot giants with my blunderbuss before, for doing less damage than you have, and I issued no challenge neither. The dragon was disturbed. "Curse the giant for a liar," he thought. "I have been sadly misled. And now, what on earth does one do with a bold farmer, and a sword so bright and aggressive?" He could recall no precedent for such a situation. "Chrysophylax is my name," said he. "Chrysophylax the Rich. What can I do for your honor?" he added ingratiatingly, and one eye on the sword, and hoping to escape battle. "You can take yourself off." Wow. I guess I'll say that. "You can take yourself off, you horny old varmint. "You horny old varmint," said Giles, also hoping to escape battle. "I only want to be shut of you. Go right away from here, and go right back to your own dirty den." He stepped towards Chrysophylax, waving his arm as if he were scaring crows. That was quite enough for Tailbiter. It circled, flashing in the air. Then down it came, smiting the dragon on the joint of the right wing. A ringing blow that shocked him exceedingly. Of course, Giles knew very little about the right method of killing a dragon, or the sword might have landed in a tender spot. But Tailbiter did the best it could in inexperienced hands. It was quite enough for Chrysophylax. He could not use his wing for days. Up he got and turned to fly and found that he could not. The farmer sprang on the mare's back. The dragon began to run. So did the mare. The dragon galloped over a field, puffing and blowing. So did the mare. The farmer bawled and shouted as if he were watching a horse race, and all the while he waved Tailbiter. The faster the dragon ran, the more bewildered he became, and all the while the gray mare put her best leg foremost and kept close behind him. So, basically they're chasing the dragon off. Okay. On they pounded down the lanes and through the gaps in the fences, over many fields and across many brooks. The dragon was smoking and bellowing and losing all sense of direction. At last they came suddenly to the bridge of Ham. The bridge of Ham thundered over it and came roaring down the village streets. There Garm had the impudence to sneak out of an alley and join in the chase. All the people were in their windows or on their roofs, some laughing, some cheered, and some beat tins and pans and kettles, and others blew horns and pipes and whistles, and the parson had the church bells rung. Such a to-do and ongoing had not been heard in Ham for 100 years. And then there's... Just outside the church, the dragon gave up. He lay down in the middle of the road and gasped. Garm came and sniffed at his tail, but Chrysophylax was past all shame. Good people and gallant warrior, he panted, as Farmer Giles rode up while the villagers gathered around at a reasonable distance, with hay forks, poles, and pokers in hand. Good people, don't kill me. I am very rich. I will pay for all the damage I have done. I will pay for the funerals of all the people I have killed, especially the parson of Oakley. He shall have a noble cenotaph, though he was rather lean. I will give you each a really good present if you will only let me go home and fetch it. Okay. I don't know if I trust this dragon, but okay. How much? Said the farmer. Well, said the dragon, calculating quickly. He noticed that the crowd was rather large. 13 and 8 pence each? Nonsense, said Giles. Rubbish, said the people. Rot, said the dog. 2 golden guineas each, and children halfpence, said the dragon. What about dogs? Said Garm. Go on, said the farmer. We're listening. 10 pounds, and a purse of silver for each soul, and gold collars for the dogs, said Chrysophylax anxiously. Kill him, shouted the people, getting impatient. A bag of gold for everyone, and diamonds for the lady, said Chrysophylax hurriedly. Now you're talking, but not good enough, said Farmer Giles. You've left dogs out again, said Garm. What size of bags? Said the men. How many diamonds? Said the wives. Dear me, said the dragon. I shall be ruined. You deserve it, said Giles. You can choose between being ruined and being killed where you lie. He brandished Tailbiter, and the dragon cowered. Make up your mind, the people cried, getting bolder and drawing nearer. Chrysophylax blinked, but deep down inside of him, he laughed. A silent quiver, which they did not observe. Their bargaining had begun to amuse him. Evidently, they expected to get something out of it. They knew very little of the ways of the wide and the wicked world. Indeed, there was no one now living in all the realm that had any actual experience of dealing with dragons and their tricks. Chrysophylax was getting his breath back, and his wits as well. He licked his lips. Name your price, he said. Then they all began to talk at once. Chrysophylax listened with interest. Only one voice disturbed him, that of the blacksmith. No good'll come of it, mark my word, said he. A worm won't return, say what you like, but no good will come of it either way. You can stand out of the bargains. If that's your mind, they said to him, and went on haggling, taking little further notice of the dragon. Chrysophylax lifted his head, but if he thought of springing on them, or of slipping off during the argument, he was disappointed. Farmer Giles was standing by, chewing a straw and considering, but Tailbiter was in his hand, and his eyes were on the dragon. You lie where you be, he said, or you'll get what you deserve, gold or no gold. The dragon lay flat, and at last the parson was made spokesman, and he stepped up beside Giles. Vile worm, he said, you must bring back to this spot all your ill-gotten wealth, and after recompensing those whom you have injured, we will share it fairly among ourselves. Then you will make a solemn vow never to disturb our land again, nor to stir up any other monster to trouble us. We will let you depart with both your head and your tail to your own home. And now you shall take such strong oaths to return with your ransom, as even the conscience of a worm must hold binding. Chrysophylax accepted after a plausible show of hesitation. He even shed hot tears, lamenting his ruin, till there were steaming puddles in the road. But no one was moved by them. He swore many oaths, solemn and astonishing, and that he would return with all his wealth on the feast of Saint Hilarius and Saint Felix. That gave him 8 days, and far too short a time for the journey, as even those ignorant of geography might well have reflected. Nonetheless, they let him go and escorted him as far as the bridge. To our next meeting, he said as he passed over the river. I am sure we shall all look forward to it. We shall indeed, they said. They were, of course, very foolish, for though the oaths he had taken should have burdened his conscience with sorrow and a great fear of disaster, he had, alas, no conscience at all. And if this regrettable lack of one of imperial lineage was beyond the comprehension of the simple, at least the parson, with his book learning, might have guessed it. Maybe he did. He was a grammarian, and could doubtlessly see further into the future than the others. The blacksmith shook his head and went back to his smithy. Ominous names, he said. Hilarious and Felix. I don't like the sound of them. Okay, we are going to end this here. We made it to page 119. Yeah, this is the right page. Okay, just making sure I have the page right. Okay, we have been reading from Farmer Giles of Ham, and this is the book by J.R.R. Tolkien, or it's a story rather. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. And if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.